Hi, welcome to another executive interview for Becoming Retail, a content series that looks at leadership during digital transformation. I am delighted to have Andrea.Wasserman here with me. She is the head of global commerce at Verizon Media Group and a longtime thought leader in the retail industry. I actually got to know her through Twitter, her Forbes column, her newsletter Captain Customer, and her LinkedIn posts. So I highly recommend following her on all of the digital channels so that you too can benefit from her insights. And we're so lucky to have her here to talk to us directly about everything that she's learned in the retail industry. So Andrea, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's always nice to see you, Michelle.
Excellent. So let's start at the beginning. You've had a storied career in retail. What got you interested in the industry, and where has your career taken you?
Well, as a child, I got interested in shopping. And so like to spend time in the mall, ultimately ended up working there at the ripe age of 16. And really, I say I've never left the mall. So the mall obviously looks different today than it did back then. And it is digital in many cases today. But the mall is the mall and people continue to shop. And the reasons that people shop and what drives them to buy and what helps inform when they buy and where they buy, all of that just remains really, really exciting for me to think about.
Yeah, definitely. You've had stints at a lot of different retailers. So maybe you could kind of talk us through where you've been and what you've done at those companies.
Well, going back to those mall days, it was limited to, if you remember that children and tween chain. So that was a lot of fun and certainly set me on a path toward fashion. But I actually did spend some time covering the retail industry, both as an investment banking analyst and as an equity research analyst. And so that gave me a lot of broad perspective to think about what makes companies similar, what makes them different, what drives their growth, what risks are out there that everybody just needs to bear in mind. And following that, wanted to get internal retail experience and really learn the building blocks for how physical product, which at the end of the day is still what people buy, makes its way to stores and to digital sites and apps. And so spent time really growing up in a lot of ways professionally at Nordstrom, which was an outstanding experience. Held roles in a number of different functional areas, including as a GM leading their nascent bridal division at the time, which was one of my favorite jobs to date. And then continued to lead both digital and physical retail businesses in the fashion space. I was the CEO of Soul Society, the shoe and accessory brand, went on to lead e-commerce for Hudson's Bay in Canada and Lord & Taylor in the US, spent a little bit of time at Nine West across digital and stores. And then about 4 years ago, got a phone call from Verizon. And at first it seemed so different from what I had always done, but really retail is retail, as I said. And when consumers are entering a store, they're really not thinking about resetting expectations because it is, perceived as a technology store versus a fashion store. In fact, I take inspiration from museums and restaurants and hospitality because the expectations are being set and reset every day. So what I've actually seen at Verizon is that I was able to leverage a lot of the experience that I had across fashion and beauty, bring it to the sales experience and the customer experience for technology, media, services, subscriptions, and really leverage that across Verizon's store footprint, which is the sixth largest in the US in terms of store count. So really energizing to operate at that kind of scale, leading retail customer experience across that fleet. And then about a year ago, joined Verizon Media Group, which you may know is Yahoo, AOL, Makers, Built by Girls, TechCrunch, Yahoo Finance, Sports, Mail, all of these really compelling properties to start building an e-commerce business here.
That is amazing. And I love that you're taking influence from not only fashion retail, but hospitality and museums to imbue the store experience with those types of experiences so that consumers really enjoy being in the store. And again, you're kind of, when I've looked through your LinkedIn profile, you've really been at the cutting edge at a lot of intersections of omni-channel, taking Soul Society into new wholesale channels. You really have led on the trends. And I definitely have seen that in your thought leadership online. And here you are at another sort of pivotal moment in retail, which is blending content and commerce at the Yahoo and other digital properties. So can you dive in a bit deeper about what you're doing now and what fascinates you about it?
Well, in general, what really inspires me and invigorates me is helping established companies build new businesses and new revenue streams, and really take those from nothing or a little something to operating at scale. And that's exactly what my team and I are thinking about now. Yahoo already has 900 million global monthly active users, and they're already showing their intent and their desire to shop with us based on the reputation of the Yahoo brand and the content and the mail experiences that we're already offering. So it's really thinking about, how do we give them more of what they're already voting for? How do we create purchase journeys that are shorter and less friction filled and more delightful, and make it just easier for consumers to buy from us? And so that really is what is underlying many different initiatives that we have in place, from content commerce, as you mentioned, to making Yahoo Mail an inbox that you can actually shop, to launching our own marketplace and making us the retailer in that case, which we announced several months ago.
Yeah, so many exciting initiatives going on there. And again, pushing that envelope as to what retail really means and where purchases can happen. And as you said, building from scratch is a passion of yours. And so I want to dive into your thinking around innovation. That's a very broad word, maybe a buzzword. So I'd love to hear how you make innovation concrete, how you think about it in your own roles.
Well, I think that it can't be innovation for the sake of going after a new shiny technology prize. It really has to be grounded in an understanding of the consumer. And that can come in a lot of different ways, but it has to be there, and it has to be solving a customer problem that we as a company think that we are uniquely positioned to solve. And so that really, I think, is what fuels the strategic decisions that I've made with teams over the years. It has to have that consumer purpose, it has to have the business purpose, and the team and the broader organization have to be in a place to really give it a chance and to make the investment, to show some patience, to realize that in a lot of cases, these aren't businesses that are showing immense profitability from day one, but really take a lot of that TLC over time and to realize what they can be.
Excellent. Yes. And speaking of that, sort of, how do you set expectations internally and maybe externally for evaluating that innovation? Because it does take time, and maybe your learnings are from your failures instead of the successful scaled business. So how do you think about measurement when it comes to innovation?
I think it's about having, a good definition of the long-term prize. What are we going here? What are we going for here? What's the newspaper headline that we want to be seeing? And then really acknowledging where we're starting, because especially in a large company, it's easy to have different perceptions of what the ground floor really is. What are we capturing as that business, if anything, today? And what are the realistic plans that we can put in place to take it forward, to take it to that kind of prize line? I think that large companies can be so used to a really disciplined strategic planning and financial long-term planning process, which is great in most ways. When you're starting a new business, though, in an existing company, it requires a different type of thinking, to realize that we're planning this off of so little information that we're going to have to go into it with a different degree of flexibility than we might with more mature business lines. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have plans and that we shouldn't be disciplined, but I think thinking about it in that way is really important. And then what's a fast follow there is making sure that everybody will be measuring it the same way across teams. And that if we are putting a disproportionate amount of an investment into a new business area, then what are we doing to recognize that other teams may not be getting that, and that there may be trade-offs that affect those teams' businesses? And so aligning incentives and supporting good recognition programs across the company that take into account businesses that are at different stages of maturity is critical from what I've seen.
Excellent. That's very, very fascinating. And to build on that, we did a survey last year of retail executives, and the major barrier to innovation and digital transformation was organizational change. And you spoke a lot about teams and incentives. Can you share a little bit more about what you learned from changing organizations and the way people work to enable that type of innovation to happen?
I think the importance of really simple, consistent, frequent communication just cannot be underestimated. It's about thinking creatively about who is the team that needs to be a part of this. And they may be people who are on the org chart, a solid line. They may be people who are full-time on the initiative, but a dotted line. And there may be dozens or hundreds more, depending on the size of the company, that are part-time on this and also doing other work. But making all of those people feel like a core part of the team in building what we're building is really powerful for them, so that they understand it and they have the context and they feel like they are a part of something that is of paramount importance to the company and really growing. That can be a real game changer from what I've seen from a cultural standpoint. And making sure that those people have the very simple storyline so that they can go out and tell others about this.
So it's about having that vision on where you want to go and communicating it to every stakeholder in that vision on a frequent, clear, simple basis.
Yeah, and I think, being broad in that definition of stakeholders, because oftentimes with these newer businesses, everybody feels like a stakeholder. Everybody wants to know what's going on. And so best to be proactive with that. And if there is a visual communication of the story, that can help even more.
It gets everyone excited, right? People want to be where the innovation and then the new things are happening, right? So you want everyone feeling engaged and involved. That's excellent. I love that. That's very straightforward, actionable advice for people when they're thinking about a very large change to the way people work. And I'm going to switch gears a bit just to talk about kind of a couple of things. First, I want to talk to you about, you're now at the edge of sort of marketing, right? Revolutionizing these traditional media properties. What advice do you have for other marketers in the space when you think about the evolution of marketing? What should they be doing? What should they be thinking about as they look to grow their business?
First of all, I think that redefining what marketing is a really good starting point. Marketing used to be, I think, a very set list of functional areas, and it was either marketing or it wasn't, and you were either talking to customers in a marketing way or you weren't. And now there are a couple of big shifts going on. One of them is that there is more of a blur than ever before about digital marketing, store marketing, PR, influencer, organic, paid. All of this has become a lot muddier, and not in a bad way, but we need to account for that when planning marketing and knowing that there are both halo effects and detriments as all of this becomes a little bit blurrier. So that's one piece of it. And I think that applies from how we plan marketing to how we report on marketing to how we build teams around marketing. And then the other piece of it on the consumer side is that I often say consumers are both always shopping and never shopping, meaning that there are so many ways now to shop that you can pop over to Instagram, not be in a shopping mindset at all. And if you're anything like me, end up with a few purchases by the time you've caught up on your feed from the day. And so that is also something that we as marketers need to be thinking about, is how are we inserting ourselves in respectful ways into situations where consumers may not yet be shopping, could be a pop-up shop, could be out of home, digital out of home, which is something we talk a lot about, or it could be more of those traditional channels. But we do need to be thinking about the fact that overall, there is just this big blur going on. And that has to play a role in how we plan for marketing, report on marketing, and organize ourselves around marketing.
Right, exactly. And then we go back to that organization piece. It's so crucial to be cross-functional and collaborative and keep everyone informed on where we're headed and what we're trying to achieve.
Mhm.
And now I'm going to switch gears even more and talk about, well, we really can't have a conversation about retail and marketing without acknowledging what we've all been through in the past 16 months. It's been a very challenging and difficult time. I'm curious to learn what have you learned about leadership during this time, especially as you took on a new role?
I think that just being curious is some of the best career advice for anybody at any point. And I think inspiring teams over the past year and a half to peel back the onion, to use a cliche, and look for more than what all of the COVID retail headlines were saying, to really understand what's happening here, why is it happening, what do we think the long-term trends are coming out of this. That was one application of this edict, to be curious at all times. The other piece of it, I would say, is really more on the personal leadership front. And that is taking the time to notice and to ask about what is going on in people's backgrounds, both literally, because we all see them, and also figuratively. What is under the surface that we don't see? What do we as leaders need to understand about our colleagues and our teams who have been going through this tremendously difficult time? Whether it is about a work schedule or somebody falling ill, and how do we make that a part of the conversations we're having? I have a colleague who commented recently that she doesn't want to go back to a world where she doesn't know her team's kids' names, and that resonates. And so, how, if we're as difficult as this time has been, how do we really take that spirit of curiosity, both about the consumer and about ourselves and our teams, and carry that forward at least?
That's very lovely. Yes, it's been fun to meet my peers, children on Zoom when they run in and
Dogs,
text
cats,
as well.
everybody.
Yeah. I'm boring. I only have plants. So, and the one behind
I've
me.
acquired a handful of those as well. In one of my e-commerce shopping habits.
Yes, me as well. So always nice to break up the day with a trip to the gardening center. And now I'm going to close out with our favorite question here at Becoming Retail, which is, if you have one word and one word only, maybe two words with a hyphen, what would you use to describe the retail industry? What one word?
Forever.
Excuse me?
Forever.
And why forever?
I mean, since the beginning of time, we have been trading, we have been exchanging, we have been transacting. And that is something that has changed, but the fundamentals of it are still there. And I think that even as we get curious and get creative, we can't forget that.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that all of this new technology is really just enhancing a forever habit, really. People will
Exactly.
always be transacting. So it's good for job security, right? Well, again, thank you so much, Andrea, for being here and
Thank
sharing
you.
your insights. I definitely appreciate it. And it's been lovely to talk to you.
Nice to see you again.